Lucas stood alone in the cold, dimly lit room. The walls seemed to close in on him with every passing second. The silence in the chamber almost deafening. The only sound he could hear was the steady hum of the spaceship's engine, the low vibration. Beneath his boots, his wrists were bound to the chair, the ropes tight enough to remind him of his captivity. But what troubled him more wasn't the restraints. It was the unknown fate waiting for him at the hands of the alien queen. It hadn't been his fault. The mission was supposed to be a routine reconnaissance, a simple in-and-out job. But things had gone horribly wrong when his team was ambushed by an enemy fleet that didn't follow the usual rules of war. Before he knew it, Lucas found himself alone on an alien ship, surrounded by beings who didn't look like anything he had ever seen before. The door to the room slid open without a sound, and Lucas stiffened. He knew who it was before the first step echoed down the hallway. Queen Karya, the ruler of this foreign empire, walked into the room. She moved with a fluid grace, her figure tall and imposing. Her presence seemed to fill the entire space, her regal attire shining faintly under the dim light. Her eyes locked with his immediately, and Lucas couldn't help but feel a rush of uncertainty. Those eyes weren't the cold, lifeless eyes of an enemy. They were sharp, calculating, yet full of curiosity and unsettling mixture for someone in his position. Human. Her voice cut through the air, smooth like silk but carrying an edge of command. I have questions, and you will answer them. Lucas swallowed hard, trying to steady his racing heart. He had no idea what to expect, but he had been trained for interrogations. He had no choice but to face whatever came his way. Karya approached, her gaze never leaving his, as though she was measuring every reaction, every flicker in his eyes. Do not lie to me. I am the ruler of this empire, and you will respect my authority. She moved so close to him that he could feel the heat radiating off her. Her presence was suffocating, but it was also intoxicating in a way Lucas couldn't explain. I'm not here to lie, he said, his voice steady despite the situation. I'm just here to survive. She smiled, and the expression sent a chill down his spine. It was a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. A smile of someone who had seen far too much in her lifetime to find joy in anything. She paused, circling him like a predator sizing up its prey. What is it that makes humans so fascinating? Karya's voice dropped lower, a sharp edge creeping into her tone. Tell me, what do you find beautiful about your kind? The question threw him off guard. Beautiful. Lucas had been through countless battles, faced impossible odds. But the concept of beauty never seemed important. What was beauty in a world full of violence? But there she was, a powerful, almost godlike being, asking about something so simple. Lucas hesitated, then answered, I don't know. We find beauty in different things, some in nature, others in art. But for me, it's something more than just appearances. It's the way we see the world, the way we fight for what's right. Karya stopped in front of him, her eyes narrowing. That's a weak answer, human. She leaned in closer, her face just inches from his. Tell me, do you think I am beautiful? The question hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Lucas wasn't sure if she was mocking him or genuinely asking. The truth was, she was intimidating, powerful, and regal, but there was something else about her. Something almost fragile beneath her surface. She was a queen, and queens didn't ask questions like that. I don't know, Lucas stammered, his mind racing. I mean, you're strong. You lead an empire. Karya's lips twisted into a half smile. She stepped back, her eyes still fixed on him, a strange amusement flickering across her face. That's not an answer, human. You're either afraid to tell me the truth or you are lying. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Perhaps you are simply not ready to admit it. Lucas shook his head, confusion flooding his thoughts. I'm not lying to you. Her smile deepened, and she moved even closer, trapping him against the cold metal wall of the room. Then tell me, she whispered, do you think I am beautiful, human? The proximity of her body, the power radiating from her presence, left him speechless. There was something terrifying about how she cornered him both literally and figuratively. He wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to run. His heartbeat quickened as he looked into her eyes, feeling a strange mixture of awe and fear. Her question wasn't just about her appearance, it was about control, about testing him, finally. Lucas found his voice again. "I don't think you need to ask me that," he said quietly. "You already know." Karya's eyes softened, just for a moment, before the sharp edge of her gaze returned. She took a step back, breaking the intense moment. "Perhaps," she said, "you're right." Lucas exhaled sharply, the tension lifting, but it didn't leave him entirely. She was no longer standing over him, but the power dynamic hadn't shifted. The queen was still in control, and he was still a captive, still trying to understand the motives of the strange alien ruler. "Tomorrow," Karya said, her voice colder than before, "you will tell me more about Earth, and we will see if your answers are as weak as your opinion of my beauty." With that, she turned on her heel and walked out of the room, leaving Lucas alone with his thoughts. The door slid shut behind her, and he could still feel the weight of her presence lingering in the air. Lucas slumped against the wall, trying to process what had just happened. He had been interrogated before, but this was something else entirely. Karya had an almost intimate way of breaking him down, of making him question everything he thought he knew about strength and beauty. He had no idea what she really wanted from him. But one thing was clear, she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted, and Lucas wasn't sure he could survive whatever that was. The next morning, Lucas was led back to the chamber. He had barely slept. His mind kept replaying the moment when Karya had cornered him, her eyes searching for something that Lucas didn't understand. He couldn't help but think about her. Strange question. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" Her voice kept echoing in his mind, and he found himself wondering if he made the right decision not answering her directly. Was she testing him, or was she genuinely seeking something deeper, something beyond her role as a powerful alien queen? As he walked down the cold metal corridors, surrounded by the sound of heavy footsteps from the alien guards, Lucas tried to clear his mind. But the questions just wouldn't stop. What was Karya's true interest in him? Why had she asked him about beauty? Why had she even cared for his opinion? He entered the chamber again, and this time, Karya was already there, standing by the large observation window. Her back was to him, but even without seeing her face, Lucas could feel the weight of her presence. She turned slowly, her gaze meeting his, and for a moment, Lucas thought he saw a flicker of something, maybe vulnerability in her eyes. But it was gone too quickly to be sure. "You're early," Karya remarked, her voice sharp as usual. But Lucas caught a hint of something softer beneath it. "Sit." She gestured to the chair in the center of the room. It was the same chair from yesterday, and Lucas hesitated only for a moment before sitting down. He could feel the tension in the room rising, and once again, he was reminded that this wasn't just about him and her. This was a test. A test he didn't fully understand yet. Karya stepped forward, her footsteps measured and deliberate. She towered over him, but instead of feeling the usual fear that came with being so close to someone of her power, Lucas found himself oddly calm. It wasn't the calm of someone resigned to their fate, it was the calm of someone who was beginning to understand the game they were playing. "You will answer me now, human," Karya said, her voice low, but with an authority that demanded respect. "You will tell me about your people, about your world, and you will tell me about beauty." Lucas looked up at her, meeting her gaze without flinching. "What do you want to know?" Karya smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had already won everything. "Tell me about Earth, about the humans, about your beliefs and your desires. Start with the simple things. Start with beauty." She paced in front of him, her hands clasped behind her back as she walked. Her presence filled the room, and Lucas couldn't help but notice how commanding she was. It wasn't just the crown on her head, or the regality in her voice, it was the way she held herself, the confidence that radiated from her every movement, the way we see beauty. "It's different for everyone," Lucas began slowly, trying to gather his thoughts. He had never been asked these kinds of questions before, not from anyone, let alone an alien queen. Some people find beauty in nature, like the oceans or the sky. Others find it in art, in music, in the way someone speaks or walks. And what about you? Karya asked, her voice cutting through his thoughts like a knife. Lucas hesitated, unsure of what to say. The truth was, he had never really thought about beauty in the way Karya seemed to want him to. Beauty wasn't something he had focused on during his missions. But here, with her eyes on him, the question seemed important. He had to be careful how he answered. I think beauty is something in the small things, he said. The way a person smiles when they're truly happy, or the way the sunlight hits the horizon just before it sets. It's fleeting, but it's real. Karya stopped pacing and turned to face him fully. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to see beyond the words, as if she was trying to read his soul. And you think that is beautiful? That small, fleeting thing? Lucas nodded slowly. Yes. Karya stepped forward, her gaze softening, but only slightly. I have seen many things in my life, human. I have ruled empires, waged wars, and conquered worlds, yet I have never understood your kind's obsession with beauty. Her eyes seemed to search the walls around her, as if the answer was hidden somewhere in the air. Why is it so important to you? Lucas looked at her, the words coming more easily now. Maybe it's not the beauty itself, but the idea of it, the idea that something can be perfect, even for a moment, that something, however small, can be worth holding onto. Karya studied him for a moment, her face unreadable. And what of me, human? What do you see when you look at me? Lucas took a breath. There was no point in avoiding the question. He had already said that beauty wasn't just about looks, but now he was being asked directly about her. He wasn't sure how to respond. Part of him feared that answering honestly might cost him, but part of him knew that honesty was his only option. You're powerful, he said slowly, trying to find the right words. You're strong, and you command respect. I see that. Karya's eyes flickered for a moment, a glint of something he couldn't place passing through her gaze. But just as quickly, her expression returned to its usual regal indifference. Is that all? Lucas paused, then added, and yes, you are beautiful in your own way, but not because of what you look like. It's because of who you are, what you've done. It's your strength, Karya. For the briefest moment, Karya's expression softened only a fraction, but enough for Lucas to notice. Then, without warning, she straightened her posture, her eyes becoming sharp once more. I see, she said, her voice almost a whisper. So, you think I'm beautiful, in spite of everything? Lucas didn't know what to say. He had never been one to offer compliments just to flatter someone, and he wasn't sure what she expected of him. But there was a shift in the air. Now, something that felt different, something he couldn't quite explain. Karya stepped back and regarded him for a long moment. You may be more useful than I thought. Human, perhaps there is more to you than just a prisoner. Lucas wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a threat, but for the first time, he felt as though he might have earned a small measure of respect from this powerful queen. Tell me more about your world, Karya commanded, but this time, don't just talk about beauty. Tell me about your weaknesses. Lucas swallowed. This was not going to be an easy conversation. The days blurred together. Each morning, Lucas was escorted to Karya's chamber, where he would sit and answer her questions, sometimes about Earth, sometimes about beauty, sometimes about the things that made humans who they were. There was a rhythm to it now, a strange kind of routine that Lucas had grown used to, even if it was far from comfortable. Karya, the alien queen who had trapped him here, was a force of nature, her beauty and power undeniable, her curiosity unnerving. Yet, beneath her demanding questions and sharp gaze, Lucas had begun to see something else, something more than the queen's cruelty or dominance. He had begun to see her vulnerability, glimpsed only in fleeting moments when her eyes softened, when the weight of her crown seemed to press heavier than usual. And despite the danger of his position, Lucas couldn't help but wonder if there was more to her than just a ruthless ruler. One day, after another tense conversation with Karya, Lucas was led down a narrow corridor in the ship farther than he had ever been taken before. The guards, usually silent, now exchanged glances as they walked. Lucas noticed the change immediately. his instincts kicking in. There was something different today, something unsettling in the air. He had barely taken a step when a figure emerged. From the shadows, stepping into his path, it was Zalara, one of Karya's trusted guards. But she wasn't wearing her usual armor. Instead, she wore the simple robes of a servant, and her face was partially hidden beneath a hood. "Human," she whispered quickly, her voice tense, "come with me." Now, Lucas froze, unsure of what to make of this sudden turn of events. Zalara was one of Karya's closest enforcers. Why was she helping him? He had always believed that the guards were loyal to the queen, no matter what, yet there she was, standing in front of him, offering him an escape. Why? Lucas asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zalara glanced nervously over her shoulder before stepping closer to him. "I'm not your enemy, but if you stay with Karya much longer, it'll destroy you. You don't know what she's planning. What she wants from you. She won't stop until she has everything from you." Lucas's heart raced. What did she mean by everything? His mind raced through the possibilities, but he could feel that something was wrong. "What does she want from me?" Zalara hesitated, then spoke in a lower voice. "Karya is. She's obsessed with you. She sees something in you, something that her empire has never understood. Beauty, yes, but also a connection. She believes you are the key to something, but she doesn't understand it yet. And if you stay, she'll break you." Lucas was quiet for a long moment, his mind spinning. "You're helping me escape." "Why?" Zalara's eyes darkened. "Because I've seen this before. She's too focused on control, on power. She'll take more than you're willing to give if you let her. You can't trust her, human." "Not completely." Lucas swallowed, unsure of what to do. Everything inside him screamed to stay silent, to not trust this guard she worked for Karya after all. But something in her voice, a sense of urgency, made him hesitate. There was something real in her words. "I can't just leave," he said, shaking his head. "What happens to you if I do?" Zalara sighed, a deep, resigned sound. "I've already made my choice, but I can't help you forever. You need to make a decision soon, or you'll be too deep in her web to get out." Lucas looked at the guards who had been silently watching him. Would they let him go if he tried? Or would they follow orders and stop him? His mind raced with possibilities, but before he could make a decision, Zalara motioned for him to follow her. "Come." She whispered urgently, "I'll take you to the ship's hangar. There's a way out. You don't have much time." The decision was made. For him, Lucas followed her, his footsteps quick but quiet, his heart pounding in his chest. The longer they walked, the further he felt from the queen, from the strange questions and the uncomfortable atmosphere of her chamber. But the farther he moved from Karya, the more questions formed in his mind. What was he really running from? Karya herself, or the truth about the connection she seemed to crave so much? As they approached a set of metal doors, Zalara paused and turned to him. "You must understand," she said, her voice softer now. "Karya is not just a ruler. She is an ancient being. Her people, the ones she rules, are not like humans. They are powerful, but they lack something human. They cannot comprehend emotions the way you do. Not even Karya. She doesn't know how to love, how to trust." Lucas felt a knot tighten in his chest. "And you think I can teach her that?" Zalara shook her head, her expression hardening. "I don't think anyone can teach her that. But I think you can save yourself before she destroys you. If you stay, you'll be part of her game. She won't stop until she gets what she wants from you." The metal doors opened, and they stepped into the hangar. It was quieter here, with the low hum of the ship's engines in the distance. In the far corner, a small shuttle waited just big enough for a single passenger. Zalara turned to him, her face hardening. "This is where I leave you. You can go, or you can return. But make your choice now, before it's too late." Lucas looked at the shuttle. His heart raced, but his mind was clear. There was no turning back. He couldn't stay in Karya's grasp, couldn't be her pawn any longer. But was he ready to leave her behind completely? As he stood there, facing the shuttle, Lucas heard the faint sound of footsteps approaching. It was too late to turn back now. "Go," Zalara urged. "Before it's too late." Lucas turned to face her one last time, his mind made up. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. Without another word, he ran toward the shuttle, leaving behind the Queen, the questions, and the danger that had followed him since the moment he was captured. The ship's engines roared to life as the shuttle powered up, and Lucas left the hangar, disappearing into the vastness of space. The shuttle shook as it sped through the vastness of space. Lucas gripped the control panel tightly, his thoughts a tangled mess. He had made his choice, he had escaped. The blaring sound of the engines was almost deafening, but inside, Lucas felt only a strange, hollow quiet. He had left the alien ship, left Karya and the power she wielded. But why did it feel like there was no escape from her? In his heart, he knew that the danger was not just in her power. It was in the strange connection they had built. Something Lucas couldn't quite understand. She had asked him those questions that went beyond interrogation. She had cornered him with her beauty, her authority. And in that moment, he had felt something powerful. He didn't want to admit it, but it was true. The fear, the awe, and maybe something more. The small shuttle carried him away from the ship and into the uncharted emptiness. It was supposed to be his escape, but Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that he was running from something far more dangerous. Then Karya's questions. The shuttle's sensors blinked a warning. He had entered a sector of space filled with debris wreckage from old wars, scattered across the stars like forgotten memories. But before Lucas could adjust course, a sudden force jolted the shuttle, causing him to grip the panel even harder. The ship lurched forward, a wave of panic washing over him. Damn it! Lucas cursed under his breath as the warning lights flickered. He struggled with the controls, trying to regain control, but nothing worked. A sharp crackling sound filled the cockpit as the system's emergency lights flashed. Then, the shuttle's engines cut out entirely, leaving Lucas in complete silence. He was drifting. Just as the panic began to rise in his chest, a communication screen flickered to life in front of him. A holographic image of Karya appeared, her face stern, but there was something unreadable in her eyes. "Human," her voice echoed. "In the small cabin, you think you can escape me?" Lucas froze, the cold realization setting in. She had found him. Despite his best efforts to flee, she was still controlling his fate. His escape had been nothing more than a temporary illusion. "I didn't want to run from you," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I just wanted to be free." Karya's image leaned closer, her features sharp and unreadable. "And you think running will make you free? You are my prisoner, Lucas, whether you accept it or not. You belong to me." Lucas fought back the urge to scream, his heart racing. "You can't keep me like this. I'm not some plaything." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you understand me. You have no idea what it means to be a ruler, to carry the weight of an entire empire on your shoulders. You think you're free because you ran? You're wrong. You'll always be mine." The words stung, but Lucas didn't let them show. He clenched his fists, sitting up straighter in his chair. "I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's." A moment of silence passed between them. Then, Karya's voice softened, but it was still laced with something dangerous. "You still don't understand, do you? I never wanted to take you. You came to me on your own, with your answers, your beauty, your strength. You think I haven't noticed?" Lucas felt a chill run through him. There it was again, her obsession with beauty. She had cornered him with her questions, but now he realized it wasn't about the answers. It was about power, control, and something deeper. But what was it that she wanted from him? "I'm not something for you to possess," he said, his voice more forceful now. "You want control, but you can't control me." Karya's image remained still for a moment, studying him. Then she spoke again, this time more calmly. "It's not about control, Lucas. It's about connection. For too long, I've ruled alone. I've watched my empire grow, my people rise. But I've never understood emotions like you do. I've never understood what it means to truly connect with someone. I thought I could learn it from you." Lucas didn't know how to respond. Her words made no sense to him, and yet they made more sense than anything she had ever said before. He could see it now, the loneliness that she hid behind her mask of power. He couldn't deny that it made him feel something he wasn't ready to confront. "You don't need me to understand emotions," Lucas replied quietly. "You need to understand yourself." Karya's expression shifted, just slightly, but it was enough for Lucas to catch it. There was a moment, a flash of vulnerability in her eyes, and for the first time, he saw her not as a queen, but as someone who had been hurt, someone who had lost something and didn't know how to get it back. For the briefest of moments, Lucas felt a connection, a pull toward her that he didn't expect. He shook his head, trying to clear the confusion that threatened to consume him. "You don't know what it's like to be human," he said, his voice quieter now. "We struggle with our emotions every day. We don't have everything figured out, but that's the thing we try. We find a way to keep going, even when we don't know where we're headed." Karya's image flickered slightly, and for a second, it seemed as though she might break the facade she had built for so long. Her lips parted, but before she could speak, the communication cut out, leaving Lucas in the eerie silence of the drifting shuttle. He sat there for a long time, his mind a swirl of emotions. What had just happened? Why had Karya's words affected him so much? She was his enemy, his captor, and yet there was something more to her than that. She wasn't just the powerful queen who ruled an empire. She was someone who, like him, was lost and searching for something she didn't understand. Lucas ran a hand through his hair, the weight of everything sinking in. He had left the ship, but he hadn't escaped the complicated connection between him and Karya, and he wasn't sure he ever could. Lucas sat in the shuttle, his hands still gripping the controls, though he no longer felt in control. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly in front of him. But it wasn't the stars that consumed his thoughts, it was Karya, the alien queen whose power and beauty had both captivated and terrified him. Her words echoed in his mind, and he couldn't escape the strange connection that lingered between them. He had tried to escape. He had tried to flee her, to break free from the web she had unknowingly woven around him. But every moment he spent away from her only made him question whether he had made the right choice. Should he have stayed? Should he have tried to understand her? To understand what she really wanted from him? As if on cue, the shuttle's control panel flickered, and the engine sputtered. Lucas cursed under his breath as the shuttle shook violently. The warning lights flashed red, and the ship veered off course. He desperately tried to stabilize it, but the ship was malfunctioning. "Not now," Lucas muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. His heart pounded in his chest as the shuttle began to drift toward a dangerous field of space. Debris, the wreckage of old battleships and shattered spacecraft scattered across the sector, like remnants of forgotten wars. Before he could act, a sudden explosion shook the shuttle, throwing Lucas against his seat. His vision blurred as the lights went out. The only sound was the deafening hum of the damaged engine. Struggling to keep the shuttle from falling apart, he gritted his teeth, forcing himself to remain focused. His hands fumbled with the controls, but nothing responded. The shuttle was falling, spiraling toward the debris field. "No," Lucas whispered, realizing that he was about to crash. Panic set in as he fought to regain control, but the ship was beyond repair. He wasn't going to make it. The shuttle plummeted through the debris field, swerving between large chunks of wreckage, the air pressure inside the cabin growing thin. Lucas could feel the ship's frame groaning under the strain, its structure threatening to break apart at any moment. His breath was quick and shallow as he steered the shuttle, trying desperately to avoid a collision. The final moment came too soon. The shuttle's nose slammed into a large piece of wreckage, the force throwing Lucas forward. The world went dark. When Lucas regained consciousness, the world around him was silent. His head throbbed with pain, and he could feel the sting of cuts across his arms and face. Slowly, he opened his eyes, and for a moment, he wasn't sure if he was still dreaming. The cabin of the shuttle was a mess of twisted metal and broken panels. The control panel was fried, and the walls were dented from the impact. He had crashed, but he was alive, gritting his teeth. Lucas unbuckled his seatbelt and crawled toward the shuttle's hatch. He could hear the faint hiss of air escaping the damaged shuttle, and he knew he had to get out fast. The longer he stayed, The more dangerous the situation became, the hatch gave way with a groan, and Lucas squeezed through the opening, falling to the ground outside. He gasped for air, the cold vacuum of space just beyond the wreckage. The debris field surrounded him on all sides, and the only thing he could hear was the faint hum of his heartbeat. He staggered to his feet, taking in his surroundings. The wreckage of the shuttle was scattered across the debris field, but beyond that, there was nothing, just an endless sea of floating remnants, all silent witnesses to wars long past. It was a place of forgotten battles, a graveyard of ships and lives lost in the cold expanse of space. For a moment, Lucas felt the weight of the loneliness pressing down on him. He was alone, stranded in an unfamiliar part of the galaxy with no way to contact Earth. There were no signs of life around him, no ships, no outposts. Just the scattered wreckage of a past he could never escape. As he turned to survey the wreckage, a familiar voice echoed through the communicator in his suit. Human. Karya's voice was calm, but there was an undeniable edge to it. Where are you? What have you done? Lucas stiffened. He hadn't realized the communicator was still active. The Queen's voice sent a chill down his spine, but he forced himself to stay calm. I'm alive, he replied, his voice steady despite the panic rising in his chest. You didn't get me. I'm free. Karya's response was silent for a moment, as if she was calculating something, weighing her options. Then, her voice came through again, softer this time. Do you really believe that? She asked. Do you think you can escape me? You can't run from what we have, human. You can't run from the truth of who we are. Lucas clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. He wasn't going to let her control him anymore. He wasn't going to fall into her trap. I'm not yours to control, Karya, he said, his voice sharp. You want me to be part of your empire, but I'm not a pawn. I'm a human, and I will fight for my freedom. There was a long pause on the other end, and for a moment, Lucas wondered if Karya was considering something, but then her voice came through again, colder than before. You think you can survive out here, alone? In this graveyard of forgotten ships and broken dreams, you're nothing without me, Lucas. Nothing. Her words hit harder than he expected, but Lucas refused to let her see his fear. He wasn't going to break. Not now. I don't need you, he said firmly. I'll find a way out. I'll survive. Karya's voice softened again, and for the first time, there was a note of something almost like sadness in it. Then go, human, run. But know this, there is no escape from what's meant to be. The communication ended, and Lucas stood there, staring into the vast emptiness of space. The debris field stretched out before him, and he knew Karya's words weren't entirely wrong. He was stranded, alone, with no idea how he would survive. But he wasn't going to let her win. He couldn't, with determination in his eyes. Lucas set off toward the nearest wreckage. He didn't know where it would lead, but he was done running. This was his fight now, and he would survive no matter what it took. The sunless void of space surrounded Lucas like a blanket of silence. The wreckage of his shuttle drifted behind him, a reminder of his failed escape. But despite the wreckage, despite the dangers that loomed all around, he felt a strange sense of resolve growing inside him. He wasn't going to be Karya's prisoner anymore. No matter what she had said, no matter how much she believed they were bound by fate, he was still his own person. He trudged through the debris field, making his way toward what seemed like the largest piece of wreckage nearby, a half-destroyed ship, its hull scarred by battle. There was no sign of life, no indication that it had been anything more than a forgotten relic. Lost to time, the ship's structure was broken, parts of it floating aimlessly, but it still looked solid enough to take shelter in. If he could find a way to board it, he might be able to send a signal for help or at least make his way to a safer sector. But as he approached the wreckage, a chilling thought crossed his mind. Was Karya right? Was there really no escape? Her words echoed in his mind. There is no escape from what's meant to be. She had spoken with such certainty, as though fate had already decided his future. Was he just running, doomed to failure? Shaking his head, Lucas refused to dwell on that fear. He couldn't let it consume him. He was a human, not a tool for an alien queen's whims. He would fight, he would survive. And he would find a way to return to Earth, away from Karya's. Gripped out, the closer he got to the wrecked ship, the more details began to emerge. The ship had been badly damaged, but it still had its outer structure mostly intact. He could see broken windows and gaping holes in the hull where the internal lights flickered weakly. He found a spot where a piece of debris had created an opening, just large enough for him to squeeze through. His heart pounded with anticipation as he carefully made his way inside. Slipping through the gap, the inside of the ship was eerily quiet. The walls were lined with dust, and everything was coated in the remnants of past destruction. It was clear that no one had been here for a long time. The interior was dark, but the flickering lights gave enough of a glow for him to navigate the hallway. Lucas moved cautiously, aware that any wrong step could lead him deeper into an unknown area. He had no idea where the ship's control room or escape pods might be, but he had to keep moving. Every minute he wasted thinking about Karya or wondering if she was right brought him closer to the uncertainty he wanted to escape. But as he explored the dark hallways, something strange happened. He felt a shift in the air, a sudden chill that made him pause. He turned to find that the hallway stretched further into the darkness. But there was something ahead, a shadow that shouldn't be there. A flicker of movement. His pulse quickened, and his mind raced. Was it a trap? Had Karya followed him? No, it couldn't be. He had disabled the shuttle's communication systems before he left. There was no way she could have tracked him this far. The figure in the shadows came into focus, and Lucas froze in surprise. It wasn't an enemy or a predator, it was Zalara, the guard who had helped him escape from Karya's ship. Zalara. Lucas's voice was a mix of disbelief and relief. What are you doing here? Zalara stepped into the dim light, her expression serious. She was still in her servant's robes, a far cry from the heavy armor she had worn before. Her eyes were tired, but there was a sharpness in them that Lucas hadn't noticed before. I came to make sure you survived, she said softly. You shouldn't have escaped alone, Lucas. The debris field, it's dangerous, and you're not safe here. Lucas frowned, still processing her sudden appearance. Why are you helping me? Karya's going to come after me? Zalara nodded, her face hardening. I know. That's why I'm here. But it's not just about you anymore. It's about stopping Karya before she destroys everything. Lucas didn't know what to say. He had been running from Karya for so long, trying to escape the web she had woven around him. But now it seemed like Zalara had an entirely different plan. Stop her? Lucas repeated. How? Zalara looked down for a moment, as if considering her next words carefully. Karya is not just a queen. She is the ruler of an empire, yes, but more than that. She's a product of the system that raised her, a system that only knows control and power. And right now, she's growing too close to the idea that you are the key to everything, to her future, to her empire. Lucas took a deep breath. I don't understand. I'm just a human. What could she possibly want with me? Zalara's eyes met his, full of warning. She doesn't understand what she's doing. She's become obsessed with the idea that your emotions, your feelings, are the key to unlocking something powerful. But it's more than that. She believes that controlling you, making you part of her world, will allow her to master something she cannot comprehend, what it means to truly connect, to love. She sees you as both a weapon and a key. Lucas felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Love. He couldn't understand what she was talking about. How could he be part of her plan for control? He wasn't a weapon. He wasn't anything to her. But I'm not a key, Lucas said, shaking his head. I'm not what she thinks I am. Zalara stepped closer to him, her voice barely a whisper. No, but that's what makes you so dangerous to her, because you are free. You have something she can never possess, and that scares her. Lucas didn't know how to process her words. He was still trying to come to terms with everything that had happened, the way Karya had looked at him, the way she had trapped him with her power. But now, hearing Zalara speak of Karya's obsession, Lucas realized just how much danger he was in. This wasn't just about surviving. This was about something deeper, something Karya didn't even fully understand. I need to get back to Earth, Lucas said. his voice more determined than ever. "And I need to stop her before she gets too far." Zalara nodded, her expression serious. "Then we need to work together. We have to find a way to stop her before she gets what she wants. Before she makes a mistake that will destroy everything." The decision was made. There was no going back now. Lucas was no longer running from Karya. He was going to confront her head-on. And this time, he wouldn't be alone.